Yay, we're live on Facebook. Woohoo! All right, so welcome everybody. I want to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Frankie Lee with Radiate Wellness. So I brought Frankie Lee.
I want to introduce to you.
You're good.
Feedback there.
A little bit of feedback.
So Frankie, tell us about what you do and introduce yourself.
Thanks so much for having me, Amelia. I love being able to use the world of technology to zoom into your group and to be able to have this chat today. My name is Frankie Lee, like Amelia said, and I'm a functional nutritionist. I'm the founder of Radiate Wellness, and I work mainly in women's health with chronic conditions and chronic symptoms. But Amelia and I have a lot of clients that we work with in common, and we share a lot of resources between the two of us to try to help support the people that we work with.
Yeah. So thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. I'm so lucky to have met you and to be able to collaborate with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what made me think about doing this with you, Frankie, was that I have heard so many times about people asking me about stubborn belly fat, and very often it seems to correlate with eating patterns, right? Very often, people who are saying, well, I'm not hungry in the morning, what do I do? Is that bad? And, I often get questions, should I be working out more? Should I do more core work? Should I be, doing more HIIT? Or, what do you think about intermittent fasting? And, all these things to try and hit that trouble area that many of us have. And I know, but I'm not as good as explaining it, that there are internal things happening, right, that are really affecting that belly fat area. And it's not about working harder. It's not about eating less. It really comes down to what's happening inside. So I really would love for you to give us the down low on what's really happening inside. Like what does a normal, how should your normal inside activities look like? Blood sugar and hormones, ideally, and then how does it get off, right? And then we can kind of go from there. All right.
Yeah. So I feel like I hear a lot of those same questions too. I think that we really live in a culture about with people who want to just do more and, kind of push themselves to the next level. And a lot of times people are willing to show up and do the things, but we may be putting our energy or our focus priorities in kind of like the cart before the horse, right? So when we think about the way that our bellies can show up as that problem area, I think it's really important to recognize that we hold weight in different parts of our bodies for different reasons. And oftentimes when we're talking about that kind of stubborn belly fat, that abdominal area, we are really looking at a hormonal issue or a hormonal imbalance. Now, most people think right out of the gate when we say the word hormones that we're talking about things like progesterone or estrogen or having PMS symptoms, or maybe for men having testosterone deficiency. But really, hormones encapsulate a whole variety of chemical communications that are going on throughout the body. And if you think about that orchestra of communication that's going on, blood sugar is actually really the conductor of all of that communication. And the reason that is that insulin is actually a hormone. And if insulin and our blood sugar regulation are out of whack or not having good communication, it causes that downstream effect to happen where our other hormones get to be out of balance. And one of the hormones that I think we should really chat about a little bit more is cortisol, because cortisol and blood sugar are super tied in together. They actually have a really, really mirroring relationship. And so when we think about pushing our bodies more and stressing our bodies more, we want to be careful that we're not surging or trying to deplete our cortisol levels, which we actually really need for energy, and that we're being mindful about where we're pushing ourselves and how we're pushing ourselves. So I think back to your question, I think it's really looking at what is the body trying to tell us, and how do we help our bodies have better hormonal balance based on blood sugar balance.
Right. So if our plan is to work out harder and add more cardio and do HIIT and maybe do some fasting, then we're really going to be depleting our cortisol, right? Which is going to make that blood sugar management harder, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. And so that's not going to benefit that area, right?
Right. And so with cortisol, also a really important correlation to keep in mind is that when our stress response or our cortisol rises, our blood sugar rises. So you can kind of think about it like if you were being chased by a tiger. That's kind of the classic example that we think of when we're talking about cortisol, is that you want to be able to use your cortisol and turn it on and then turn it off, right? So like in that case, we would want to be chased by the tiger and then get away and then be able to calm down, and our cortisol levels would calm down. But what happens when we are stressing the body, or maybe not giving the body what it needs in terms of foods throughout the day or at the right times, we actually can cause the body to be in that kind of chronic survival mode where the cortisol is elevated. And because of that, we're experiencing also high blood sugar at the same time.
Hmm. Right. Right. And so, what is happening with so many people that I've heard who say, well, just for the longest time since I was a kid, I was never hungry in the morning. I never wanted breakfast. And so I just have never been a breakfast person. What is really going on there? And is that something that, people can work on, or is that just kind of how they are?
This is a great question. I think one of the most amazing things about the human body is how adaptable we are, right? We can change, we can change our habits, we can change the way that we're communicating with our body, and we can absolutely change our metabolism or how we're using our fuel for energy. And when I hear this a lot too in my practice, this kind of pattern of not being breakfast eaters or not having an appetite in the morning. And what I really encourage people to do, especially when it comes to fitness and exercise, is to really think about, am I stressing my body out by asking it to work out or to exercise without having fuel to pull from? And I think that one of the things that we can really use to fuel our workouts is using some sort of a carbohydrate before working out that's really easy, because it turns to glucose very quickly and our body is able to use that as a fast source of energy. So fruit, a banana and nut butter, or something like some sort of a protein bar before working out, or something like that that has a level of carbohydrates in it as well, is going to be really useful, just to lay a little bit of a foundation to be able to have an energy source to pull from. And then if we think about it kind of out of the context of exercise, what we're doing when we're eating first thing in the morning is we're actually really dictating what our cravings are going to be for the rest of the day and what our calorie intake is going to be for the rest of the day. So I don't know about you, but a lot of times those same clients that say that they are not breakfast eaters tend to have the afternoon crash, or they lose their steam or their energy midday, or they find themselves really loading their calories at the end of the day, right? Having bigger meals at the end of the day, maybe having dessert or that beer or glass of wine at the end of the day to kind of make up for the caloric intake that they maybe didn't get first thing in the morning. Do you see that too?
I do. I see that all the time. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They have a huge dinner, or they say, oh, well, I don't really start to get hungry until like 3. But at that time it's going to be dinner soon. So I just either like snack, or I don't even eat until dinner. Yeah, I do see that a lot.
Yeah. And I think what it requires kind of is we need to reprogram ourselves to thinking about we eat when we're hungry, right? I think that's been something that so many of us that are not breakfast eaters kind of have been programmed to think, well, I'll just eat when I get hungry. And we don't actually recognize that hunger is a sign of hypoglycemia, right? When we start to get the belly growls, when we start to feel foggy, when we start to feel, like we can't retrieve words as easily, or we can't think straight, or we feel dizzy or tired. Yeah, you feel hungry, but you also are experiencing hypoglycemia at that point, right?
Right.
So that is a real big trigger to put our bodies into that survival state, to cause that havoc to go into our hormonal balance, because our body's like, wait a minute, I'm now in survival mode because I haven't had any fuel intake going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the body is very adaptable. I have seen just in changes I've made, my hunger cues change. And it
Mhm.
changes based on essentially what I'm forcing it into. If I change my eating pattern, I see my hunger cues change along with it. So it's really interesting to see that it's not something that's like you're inherently born with. Um, it's, it's definitely something that is moldable, and I find that to be a kind of hard conversation with somebody sometimes because they say, well, I'm just not hungry. And it sometimes can be hard to say, well, I'm not really trying to say like force yourself to eat, but you really should be having something in the morning to set yourself up for the day to have good blood sugar management. Um, but it sometimes can be a hard conversation there because it's not like there's something wrong with you. It's just, your body for some reason has adapted to that, has created a different pattern. And just because you're not hungry doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't eat.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think there's a gradual way to go about doing this that can be really useful for people. So take the example of the person who doesn't get hungry until 3 o'clock. So what that person can do is, if they know that they're hitting hypoglycemia at 3 o'clock, back it up an hour and eat something an hour before.
Mm,
And same thing next day, next week. And you'll see that over time, you can start to back that up, and your body will adjust and have hunger cues or appetite cues, which is really what we're going for, is appetite more than hunger, um, to start earlier and earlier in the day. I think it also plays back into, well, the person who's having the large meal at the end of the day, or the dessert at the end of the day, or calorie loading at the end of the day, is really going to have a higher blood sugar level when they wake up in the morning, and not necessarily have that natural kind of sign or signal to say it's time to eat again, right? So it really takes that whole shift in the routine of eating, what I call an upside down triangle, right? So if we think about, most people, we're eating like this. We're eating a very little amount in the morning, trying to just get our coffee in, get ourselves on the road, or get ourselves doing the day. And then we slowly eat more and more throughout the day. Whereas if we turn it upside down and we start to have that upside down approach, we really start to load up top and work with our metabolism to burn through that fuel throughout the rest of the day.
right.
Right. So then we start to notice, if we're not having a huge dinner or a lot of late night eating at the end of the day, then we're going to naturally have a little bit more of an appetite in the morning when we wake up.
Absolutely. So that's the goal, really, is that upside down triangle is to eat like that because that works inherently with our body's natural hormone cycle, right? I think it can
Mm-hmm.
be really intimidating to some people, right? If you say, oh, you're eating like this and you need to eat like this. But I like that strategy of just paying attention to when you do get hungry and then trying to beat it essentially. And then just keep walking it back, like you said, little by little, baby steps. I'm always a fan of baby steps. I think that's a great strategy. I've
Mm-hmm.
tried some other things with some clients where basically, a lot of the time I see it with people who are just really busy with work, and they just say they forget to eat. And what I try to do is tie a small snack to another habit that they already have. So, like, I think of one client who had dogs, and so she would always go out and walk her dogs. And so I said, well, put a basket of, granola bars, protein bars, like something that's snacky, small and snacky. So you're not going to be intimidated by it. That you can take on your walk and just grab that little snack for when you take the dog out on a walk. So then you're getting a little bit more consistent eating, and it doesn't require any more thought, right? Because you already have that habit of taking the dogs out. Make it super easy, put it right there, right by where you exit, right by the door. So that's been another good strategy that I've found.
Absolutely. Another one that I think for people who are really busy, and that I recommend sometimes to clients, is if you know that you have your morning drink and you know that that's one thing that never fails, right? Oftentimes the food falls off, but that morning drink, whatever it is usually going to be a pretty serious habit.
Yeah.
And if you can, and you feel like you have the ability to add a little bit of protein or a little bit of fat to that morning drink, that can be another way to start to stimulate appetite signals earlier on. So, some of my favorite are, using full fat coconut milk in your morning drink, or a scoop of collagen peptides or other protein powder that you like, and just making it almost like you have a little bit of a meal first thing in the morning in that morning drink, and get yourself those 2 to 3 hours down the road before you actually have a meal where you're sitting down and eating something larger, or preparing something larger. And I think that just in terms of blood sugar stabilization, we still get a lot of the same benefits when we do that. We still are getting a certain amount of calories in first thing in the morning. We're still getting that kind of mental stability, helping our cognitive function right out of the gate. That won't do for us, though, is give us that fast burning carbohydrate if we want to exercise in the morning. So you have to think about that when you're choosing to go, say, coffee meal, I'll call it. You have to ask yourself, what time of day am I working out? And am I giving myself that quick energy that I need for the workout?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen this in the bodybuilding world. Is there's a subsection of bodybuilding that is a big proponent of fasted cardio, right? Because the theory is that when you're fasted, your body's going to tap into those fat stores and burn fat rather than what you've eaten. But we also have a very big trend in the bodybuilding world of adrenal fatigue and hormone issues and all of that. And that's why you see people rebound after a show, they gain 30 pounds in a month, like that's not healthy. So yeah, I'm definitely always a fan of having some kind of fuel, even if you're not hungry, having, like you said, a banana or something that's going to give you a little bit of fuel, especially if your goal, and pretty much everybody should have some subset of their goal for fitness to be muscle building, right? To some extent. And if you want to build muscle, your body has to have fuel to fuel the muscles and afterwards to repair them. And if you're not giving it anything, it's really going to struggle. It's going to basically steal from other places in your body rather than, use your muscles. So you're shooting yourself in the foot, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that we want to have an abundant mindset when we're thinking about our health, right? We really do come from, and one of our colleagues, Dr. Ben Reeves, actually talks about this in his book, The Butterfly and the Serpent. He talks about how in the medical world, we are really programmed to be a culture of suppressing those hunger signals, suppressing the body's needs, suppressing the symptoms, and that we don't necessarily learn how to or spend enough time enhancing what the body really needs from the foundations up, and enhancing, in this case, what we need to do to care for our adrenals, to care for those really precious energy resources that we have. And I think I know Amelia and I both have dealt with adrenal issues in our health history. And, I think that it's anybody who's experienced it really wants to shout it from the rooftops and say, care for those adrenals, like we want you, put the work in to really baby our adrenal system, and give ourselves that sense of nourishment instead of a sense of, kind of restriction or suppression that I think we're really prone to.
Yeah. And that can be a really hard thing in the fitness world. I mean, I just saw somebody who posted something about, I didn't want to do this workout and I did it anyways. And halfway through I wanted to quit, but I didn't. And it's a hard line to learn and to figure out because yes, on one hand, mental toughness is a good thing. But on the other hand, you do have to baby those adrenals and really take care of your body. And so learning how to really um, listen to your body, respect it, but still learn how to push yourself is a hard thing. And sometimes, I basically am kind of a proponent of taking it in cycles. And this is getting off into a tangent of fitness, but taking your whole fitness journey for your life in cycles. So it's not like you're always going to be going 100% all the time, So you have a phase where you're going hard, and then other phases where you kind of like chill and take a break, gives your body time to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like a lot of these, like lifestyle changes, dietary changes, they can kind of be a long process, right? Of like resetting things. And so what are some of the things that, maybe people can do as well to help to reset that blood sugar management, help to reset those hormones, like maybe some supplements or other things to just help them along that journey so it's not, a 2-year journey, which is no fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I think one of the things that can be really helpful is just paying a lot of attention to our sleep and our sleep patterns too. I think that, if we were to, so one of the things that I run a lot in my practice is I run adrenal testing to look at an overall hormonal testing as well. And, we want to have that surge of cortisol in the morning, and we want it to gradually decrease into the afternoon and then be really nice and steady through the evening. So I think that one of the best ways to keep ourselves in a constant state of reset day after day is to really make sure that we're tending to the cradle, that we're treating ourselves to that good night's sleep, that we're regenerating, we're restoring at night while we're sleeping, we're getting good levels of deep sleep in we're not having waking throughout the night. And I think that people who tend to be chronically skipping breakfast and then having the dysregulation of blood sugar throughout the day, those are also the people who have a lot of issues with sleep. Mm-hmm. And so we get into these cycles where we're not sleeping. Maybe we're having that calorie loading meal at night before we go to bed, or that couple glasses of wine or whatever it may be, causing dysregulation of our blood sugar while we're trying to sleep. And then the whole pattern starts over again the next day. So I think that's a big one, is really thinking about all the things that we do to manage our blood sugar and keep our blood sugar steady or on an even keel throughout the day. All of those things are the same things we need to do in order to have good sleep and good regeneration at night when we're when we're trying to get that rest. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's definitely a part of the kind of like perpetual reset that we should all be trying to prioritize. Sleep is so crucial. And if we're having trouble with sleep, ask yourself about blood sugar regulation and what's going on, because what can tend to happen is our body will surge cortisol at night when our blood sugar drops. And that is that feeling of waking up anxious, waking up panicked, waking up with a million thoughts going through your mind all at the same time, right? That's also blood sugar and cortisol related. Mm-hmm. So do you find that too? I find that the breakfast skippers and those that are struggling to kind of like figure out the caloric spread throughout the day often have those sleep issues.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I see that is definitely correlated. And also not even just like the sleep issues, but their sleep pattern, like they tend to stay up later and sleep later, they get less sleep, they're up there like, oh yeah, I was up until 2, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I do
Mhm.
see that a lot. And
Mhm.
in terms of muscle building and fitness, sleep is when your body regenerates. If you're not getting good sleep and you're trying to build muscle, that's also going to be a real big struggle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think these things can kind of feel like they're all over the place, but I really think it's important for us to understand these underlying tie-ins, right? Like we could think like, well, how does our belly fat have anything to do with our sleep? But it has everything to do with it in a lot of ways, because if we're not having that good cortisol regulation, that good blood sugar management, that's where it shows up for us in our bodies most often.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because I know there are several places on the body that are correlated with higher stress, and different levels of where your hormones should be. Right.
Mhm.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but typically that belly fat area is correlated with a higher estrogen level, or at least relative to the other hormones. Right.
Mhm. Yeah, that definitely plays in quite a bit. And when we have high estrogen, oftentimes we have cortisol dysregulation going on, because the high estrogen can cause us to be more anxious. It can cause us to have more irritability, kind of those hormonal symptoms that we think of around
Mhm.
estrogen.
Right.
Um, so that in itself creates a state of stress in the body that that the adrenals are also having to manage too. So those go really closely hand in hand.
Yeah. Right. So,
Mhm.
okay. So helping with our blood sugar management will definitely help belly fat, right? Because those two are linked. And then to help to improve that is to gradually, as well as we can, change our eating patterns so that we're front loading the day with more foods. We have our upside down triangle, right? So we're having plenty of sustenance in the beginning of the day, and then less as we go throughout the day, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that, in terms of supplements and ways to support this, there's some really good things to consider if you're someone who just knows that they chronically are on the roller coaster ride of blood sugar regulation. I find it's kind of like there's two sides of the coin, right? There's either the person who is um, not eating breakfast, maybe restricting food towards later in the day, not having a lot of appetite or a lot of hunger signals early on. It's like one side of the coin. And then there's the other side of the coin, which is, people who really struggle to eat enough, like trying to eat, every 2 hours to keep their blood sugar regulated. It's kind of like on a constant grazing cycle of trying to keep their blood sugar regulated throughout the day, starting first thing in the morning, going all the way until they go to bed in the evening.
Hmm.
And both are patterns of blood sugar dysregulation. They're just slightly different things are happening on the inside. And so things like fish oil can be really important. Fish oil that also has chromium in it can be really useful for balancing blood sugar, and just getting that little bit of a boost in that way can be really, really useful. Um, and then I know that there's a product that Amelia and I both really love, which is called Keto. And it's not just for people who are on a ketogenic diet. It's not just for people who are trying to be in a state of ketosis. It's a way of having a more fat forward, blood sugar regulated element to the diet. And it's a really easy one to use. It's a great one to use if you were going to do that morning drink meal, to add it in there with your matcha, or if you're doing coffee or some other type of tea, you can throw a scoop of keto in. It's in a powdered form. And the reason that it works so well is because it's got powdered MCT oil in it, which is really good at keeping our sugar cravings down, but also keeping our blood sugar regulated throughout by being a really good source of readily available fat in the diet.
Right.
It also has a couple of other really good blood sugar balancers in it, like berberine and gymnema, which are just great for that even keel that we're going for.
Yeah, and I had, when I was researching the keto product, I looked it up and I was looking at the ingredients, and I was familiar with the gymnema and the berberine. They are well researched and well studied. They are definitely very good supplements for blood sugar management and glucose management. Yeah.
And I love any time that we can have something that's something that is a food-based supplement, instead of having to take more pills, more vitamins, more, another thing to remember to take. I think anytime we can work it into the routine and make it easy, the more we're going to do it on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And I'm a super fan of this keto. I haven't tried it because I'm pregnant, and that's not something that I can take right now, but I'm really looking forward to giving it a personalized try whenever I can. But Alberto has tried it and he is absolutely loving it. He has been taking the keto every day. You take it in the morning and in the evening. And he also did something called a bio reset, which is using the keto product and then another product called Hydrate. And it's a program that's basically a 60-hour fast. And he got great results from that, and he felt great. So some people are great at fasting, and I don't really understand why, because every time that both of us have tried to fast just, on its own with no supplement support, we've both been just miserable, headachy, tired, just not functional at all. And when he did the bio reset, taking the keto and the hydrate throughout that 60-hour fast, he felt great. No headaches, no crashing. He was working all day. Towards the end of it, it's more of that habit of like he wanted to eat something just because you just want to chew something. But he said he didn't even feel hungry really on that second day. He was just feeling good. Oh, we've got a visitor. Hi, Laria. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the bio reset. I can't wait to give it a try whenever I can.
Yes, I think people are having amazing, amazing results with it too. I think it's one of those things where we think, oh, it's just going to be, 60 hours, and what takes place in those 60 hours stays in those 60 hours. But really the long lasting effects of giving our digestive system a break, giving our hormones a chance to reset, and supporting ourselves with the right levels of fat, the right levels of detoxification is, I think, one of the best ways to fast. Because I'm totally with you. I'm like, a fast that leaves me feeling deprived and hungry and irritable is not something that I want to sign up for. No. But I am a big fan of people doing the 60-hour bio reset that has the supplemental support. Yeah. And there's also ways of doing it and monitoring your own blood sugar levels, monitoring your ketones as well. So you can really get into the data and the science behind it, which I really love.
I do too. Being a science nerd, I'm absolutely love seeing the numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you think that, somebody who is struggling with, getting rid of that belly fat, and whether or not they, are a breakfast eater or not, but because that they tried the things, they've tried working harder, they've tried eating less, and nothing really works. Do you feel like the bio reset would really give them a leg up in helping to balance that blood sugar a little bit better, get the hormones more balanced, and really have more of an internal, solution to what's going on in that belly area?
I absolutely do. I think it's one of the places where we really see, even if it's not weight reduction that we're seeing on the bio reset, we're seeing inches off, right? And that's a lot of it is in that belly area. And I think it's really just doing that work of giving the body that little bit of relief, getting rid of that inflammation that's in that area of the body, and being able to not only lose it for 60 hours, but lose it moving forward. So I think that that's one of the things that these products have been, great at, is really working together in synergy to be able to not only reset, but it almost like changed the memory of the cellular on the cellular level, right? So if you are someone who struggles with craving sugar and chasing that roller coaster of the ups and downs of blood sugars, it resets the cell on a cellular level to a point where we're able to uptake carbohydrates, uptake our fuel energy sources so much better moving forward.
Right. It's fascinating. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a really big fan, absolutely, of the bio reset. And I think what I saw from some other people, we haven't gotten the glucose and ketones monitored yet, but definitely are planning to for the next time that Alberta does the bio reset. But what I saw with other people is that, even after the fast, after they've broken their fast, that their blood sugar was staying more level and lower than it was before. So I feel like you take these, like, you're going to take these incremental steps. If you do the bio reset, and then your blood sugar management's going to get better, and then maybe you do it again in another month, and then it's going to get better, and it just keeps getting incrementally better.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it because it seems like such a more, I hate to say a fast sounds approachable, but it seems a lot more approachable than essentially going from upside, triangle to an upside down triangle. It seems like such a big change. Whereas, I can just take 60 hours and do this thing, and then it's going to make such a big improvement. The lifestyle changes are still important, but I think you can make such a big impact with that. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that people don't realize when they're doing, or when they hear about the 60-hour fast, is that sleep counts in those 60 hours.
Right.
So you get to start like in the evening, and you sleep through the first, long run of it, and then you have another night's sleep coming the next night. So those hours count in the 60 hours, which I think it just makes it like people are like, oh, right, that sounds a lot more doable, right? Than like a 5-day fast or something like that, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You basically have essentially like at least 20 hours, right, that you're going to be sleeping through the fast, because you have the time limit. So you stop at 7 o'clock, you stop eating at 7 o'clock the night before, and then you go to bed, right? And then you get up, and then you have the keto and the hydrate mix. So really all that time, because you're not going to sleep at 7 o'clock, right? So all that time from 7 to when you get up, you're still considered fasting. You've already started. So that clock is ticking, which is great. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. It's way more doable than people think. And also I think just like doing it on a weekday, doing it when you're still working, doing it when you're still kind of busy is really good, because you're in your normal pattern. You're kind of able to just kind of charge through and have your intake coming in through the fluids throughout the day, staying really hydrated, get all your mineral support. You can still take any other vitamin support that you're on at the same time. That's totally fine. So you're really resting the body, resting the digestive system, while still enhancing it in so many ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I think that is pretty much it that we wanted to talk about. I hope that, everybody, that gets to watch this, that you found it really super informative. I am going to pop the link for like the information on the bio reset in the post. And if anybody has any questions about, maybe their specific scenario of how to, change that eating pattern or make some lifestyle changes, then pop those comments in the post so that we can give you some advice.
Yes, sounds good. Well, thank you so much again, Amelia, for inviting me into your group. It's so nice to be here. And I hope that this, conversation lands with you, no matter what you're doing with your blood sugar or how you're feeling about your blood sugar. I hope that you were able to pull some little piece of this. Maybe you just focus more on sleep, which is amazing for everyone to do.
Right. Yeah. Baby steps. Exactly. Do what is manageable, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Frankie. Yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to come on and do this. And it's really, really helpful. I know it's something that, I talk about, but it's really great to get a little bit more of that insider view, because this is what you do all day, every day.
Yes, I'm on the insider view for sure. So I'm always happy to do it. And I look forward to seeing you all next time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, guys.